always predict how a girl would fare deep in the mountain. And though there was disappointment when the years of training came to nothing, the village tried not to lay blame. Not everyone could be born to the work of the harvest. Not everyone could adapt or be adapted. They would send that girl to the fields, Jena thought. She would be useful in a dull sort of way, turning the soil over, searching for yams and roots. Jena shivered at the thought of the blades striking earth. There was no place for a digger inside the mountain. What they sought in here, the precious flakes of mica that would warm the village through the long, snowbound winter, did not call for digging. When the harvest was ready, it peeled away cleanly at the slightest touch. The mountain saw their need, made them a gift of it. The sole of Jena's foot prickled where the new girl had traced her tentative fingernail. It was late in the season to be breaking in a tunneler, but with Petria gone, there was little choice. They could hardly go in with just 6. It was better that the girl came now. Better that they knew if she would join them next season, or if they might need to look to another. There were decisions to be made. Winter was nearly upon them. Already there was a telltale crispness in the air. Jena's belt snagged briefly as she hauled herself across a jagged rock. What few supplies she carried, a knife, a pouch, a flask of water, some straps of dried meat, were bound tightly against her side, so close they might almost have been part of her. Just ahead, the space appeared to widen a little. Her eyes strained into the gloom. This deep, her headlamp offered no more than a feeble glow. The other girls carried their own, but these would remain unlit until Jena found the harvest, and they spread out to begin flaking mica from the rock's surface. Although it was the mica's warmth that kept the village alive, its light was useful too. When the line tunneled, it was mica chips they used in their lamps. They would not waste them when those behind had no need to see, when all they had to do was follow. Sometimes Jena wondered whether she needed it herself. Perhaps she might make her way just as surely without the light. In her mind's quiet eye, the network of caves and interconnecting passages, the crevices and cracks through which the mountain allowed them entry, shifted this way and that, an invisible map remaking itself with every piece of ground. There were real maps back at the village, a patchwork of pages the mothers insisted Jena add to after each harvest. Though she did as directed, she had no use for them herself. Their simple, flat surfaces could hardly speak for what was inside the mountain. The maps in her mind were complex and beautiful, intersecting and flowing across one another like living, growing things. But there was no way of getting them onto the page. These days each harvest carried them into new territory. The surface mica was long depleted, the shallow tunnels stripped generations ago. It was said that in the first years after rockfall, in the time of the mother's great-great-grandparents, the line could go in for an hour and return with full pouches. But even if those stories were true, those days were long past. Every harvest called for them to go deeper and darker. As if to underscore the thought, Jena's lamp flickered, then dimmed. She reached into her pouch for another chip. Soon the mica would wink out altogether, throwing them into utter blackness. She removed the dying chip from its housing and struck the new one with her fingernail. It flared immediately into pale blue light, sending ghostly shadows onto the walls. She pressed it into place, and then slid the spent chip into a crack in the nearby stone. It was the simplest of gestures. Another girl might have tucked the chip into her pouch, carried it back to the village. It would not have been odd to do so, for spent mica had many uses. It could be hammered flat, rolled into sheets of metal, from which things like tins and cooking pans were made. Most of the mica they burned was turned eventually to such purposes, and that was as it should be. In the closed world of the valley, waste was a luxury they could not afford. But it felt different when they were tunneling. In here it seemed right that she return it to the mountain. She crawled farther, feeling the stone walls recede around her, the sense of a weight easing off her shoulders. She raised her head, throwing the anemic glow from her lamp into the space in front of her. It was a junction, a curving of the passage, one path to take, the other to pass by. She moved slowly forward,